this thing right here.
Tell us just a little bit. You grew up in the New Hampshire area, and where'd you go to high school, college, and then how'd you you're a lawyer now, and how you kind of that whole path?
The path. I'll give you the quicker version. So yeah, I'm from Salem, New Hampshire. Went to Salem High. Public school kid and proud of it. Went to Brown for undergrad. Wound up staying in Providence for 4 years after that. Worked in the athletic department at Brown actually for a couple of years, which was kind of cool.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I didn't play sports in college, but I wrote about them. My ability sports-wise ended in high school. I'm sure some of my coaches would say before that, but yeah, I played in high school basketball, baseball, and cross country. Not that I was particularly great at any of them. I was good enough, and went to college, wrote about the sports teams. I was like the sports editor at the school paper. I went in wanting to do computer science, and after nearly failing out of intro computer science, realized that I was not a computer science major. Wound up, and it's actually kind of funny. Chris Berman is actually a Brown alum.
Is it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
My freshman fall, right after I was kind of realizing computer science wasn't going to be for me, he came and was just talking about like writing. And I was just like, you know what? I like writing. I like sports. Let's give this a shot. And started writing for the school paper, became the sports editor, wound up becoming one of the editors of the paper for a year, but really, wrote a lot about Brown sports, and interned at the Eagle Tribune for a couple of summers and a winter, which is the newspaper, obviously, in North Andover, Mass. And, I thought I was going to get a job there after college. It just kind of weirdly didn't happen. So this is '06. Mm-hmm. So this is right around when just the bottom's falling out on newspapers because they don't know how to make money on the internet yet.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of didn't happen, because I remember, I joked that my college job search lasted one phone call, because I called Bill Burt, the sports editor there. And I'm like, how do I apply? He's like, we know you don't have to apply. You've interned for us for 2 summers. They know what you can do. And then it just kind of, for any number of reasons, just didn't wind up happening. And so I wound up working in the sports information departments, like media relations, at Brown with I remember I went and interviewed, and they were like, do you know what the job entails? And I'm like, for my features class, I literally shadowed you for a week. Yes, I know what the job entails. I literally had to write about it. So I did that for a couple of years, which was pretty cool. A great after college job, and wound up going to did that for a couple of years and decided, journalism wasn't really going to be where I went for a career. It might kind of be an interest I had, but it's actually kind of funny. By that point, and I could talk more about this, but by that point, I was kind of involved at Sox Prospects, and the guy who started Sox Prospects is a guy by the name of Mike Andrews, and he is an attorney. And I said, hey, do you know any law firms that might be looking for a paralegal? I want to do that for a year before I go to law school. And he's like, hang on. And a week later, he's like, yeah, we need a paralegal. Wow. Because they basically had a paralegal who was on the way out, who they were having issues with. And, he could vouch for me for the site, and he knew,
right.
My education background and stuff. He knew I was qualified. Worked great. Wound up going to UVA, the University of Virginia, for law school, which is kind of how I wound up in this area down here in the Mid-Atlantic. My uncle Rick actually went to UVA for law school.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was part of the connection there. And he was actually down in McLean, Virginia, right outside of DC when I was in law school. And then, of course, I wound up moving to DC, and they almost immediately moved to Vermont, which I joked that he was running away from me.
That's right.
Because that's where his daughter is now. But at any rate, yeah, that's kind of how I wound up down here. And so, I went to law school at UVA, still stayed involved with Sox Prospects, obviously. And like I said, I can talk more about that in a minute. It's kind of two separate things, but got a job down here, and I've bounced between a couple of firms, but I'm at a firm now down here. I met my wife in law school, and it works out great because she's from Florida. So it's kind of halfway for our families. She's got a government job. I've got a private job. So it works out well. And so we've got our house in DC proper here. We've been, down here. I've been down here since 2014 now. So
you recently just got married?
No, but that was back in 2015.
Yeah.
So
well, that's like I said, because we haven't talked. Yeah, because we haven't talked since, right?
Yeah, that's probably. I'm trying to think the last time I would have seen you guys, because I remember your dad gave me a ride to the airport when I came back.
That's right.
For a funeral.
Yes, that's right.
Members. So,
Chris, did he talk your ear off?
No, we talked at each other, man. We were. I mean, I know I'm only half Italian, but there was plenty of hand waving and gabbing. Trust me. But and you know what's kind of funny? I wanted to mention this because I've obviously been listening to the show a bit too, and listening to the podcast. By the way, nice to meet you, Brian. Who we haven't met. Brian sounds more like your dad than either of you do, I think, which is kind of funny. That's if I close my eyes and I hear Brian talk, I hear your dad more.
Oh boy, that would go well. They butt head on politics like no one's business. So
really?
They would love to hear that one.
Oh, gosh. At least in the voice. I don't know. Yeah. That's what I heard at first. I thought it was kind of funny.
No, that's funny.
But yeah, so that's how I wound up down here, and just living the life at this point, I guess.
So I'm shocked. So that the Mike Andrews, who created Stocks Prospects, he's also an attorney as well.
He is, yeah. He's kind of, we kind of joke because I actually sent you guys the article. And for anyone who's interested on how Sox Prospects started, if you've got a subscription to The Athletic, which, by the way, if you like sports, highly recommend subscribing to The Athletic. Jen McCaffrey, who's one of the beat writers of the Red Sox, did a great article, about a year ago, I think. Because it was back before all of this nonsense started last March. About how the site started, and the way I got in contact with them is I was at home on a break during college playing MVP baseball for Nintendo GameCube. I was one of the 3 people who had GameCube, and it was one of the first games where it had minor league teams and you could edit them. And so I wanted to edit the Red Sox players to be like the real ones. And I'm just Googling around and I found his website. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's got scouting reports, stats, rankings. This is awesome.
This is right up Brian's alley. I tell you, I'd like to cut you off, but like Brian does that for football. You mentioned the college football. He'll play. He still playing like college football 2012, and the last time they did it. Mm-hmm. He would play 10, 11 seasons, and he found a way to import the stats for college football so he could. And that's why I'm laughing. This is hilarious.
Well, so it's funny because now you can download them. Because I remember I had MLB The Show, you could just go in and download the rosters. Back then, you had to physically, manually do it, which shows you how little of a life I had at the time.
You were dedicated, though.
Well, I'm home from a break in college in my room in Salem, New Hampshire.
Because I gotta tell you something on the point of manually doing something. So Derek, and he probably still does, ran our fantasy baseball. And he did it. And when I was doing it, it was mid or late 90s, whenever it was.
Oh, yeah.
This is, how he would get the weekly stats? Did you know how he would do it?
Did you do the newspaper? Because there was a period of time where I did the newspaper.
Yeah, it was before Yahoo. They had the Baseball Weekly. I have to go there every week and compare it to the week before. Nice. Actually, every 2 weeks, because that's when we did our stats. I think it was every 2 weeks. I'm telling you, we're dedicated sports fans when the 3 of us. My brother, he likes sports, but he's not like us, right? Mm-hmm. But the dedication we have to go to do that stuff. So I give you credit for doing that.
When we're done, remind me to send you the league constitution from the fantasy baseball league I'm in right now. It's many pages. It's practically a legal document. It's crazy. 30-man rosters in a minor league draft. I
just imagine you punching in all that one by one and just
I'll send you the spreadsheet too. Off of it. We don't even make money. We just, we've always really historically rolled whatever, quote unquote profit, because we do a donation drive. I don't feel comfortable taking a cut of a donation, right? That's kind of silly. But the site pays for us to go to spring training every year because it's a scouting expense, really, although it's a fun one. We get to get press passes to go to games and stuff. So there's surprisingly a fair number of affiliates that play in my area, although there's fewer now because a couple of the teams got contracted this past year. But it's been great that I've been able to stay involved in it from this distance and do the podcast. We're at like 212 episodes now. I think we just did 212 this week. And it's gotten to a point where, like, our 200th episode, we interviewed Hein Bloom, the chief baseball officer. People think of it as the GM of the Red Sox. We talk to people within the organization. They know us. Like when the Red Sox this spring were doing the alternate site for a month in Worcester, they didn't let just anybody in, but we asked the Worcester media guy if we could get a scout pass for our guy who's up there, and they check with the organization. They're like, yep, they're legit. They're good. Give them a pass. And it's just kind of like, we've been able to build a reputation since the site started in 2003 to the point where, beat writers come to us with questions sometimes about stuff, because we've been doing it So for those who don't know, a baseball farm system, at least at this point, has 4 levels that are like the affiliates, right? So when you think of the Worcester Red Sox, the Portland Sea Dogs, the Salem Red Sox, and the Greenville Drive are the 4 affiliates of the Red Sox. So every team has 4 full season affiliates, meaning they play a season that in a normal year runs the same length of the Major League season. There used to be short season affiliates. They just got rid of that for the most part. So the Lowell Spinners are actually no more. But teams do have where they have their spring training. They have what's called complex teams, where it's like rookie ball guys who just are getting into baseball or who are just coming over from. The Red Sox have a Dominican academy as well. That's rookie ball. And then in the Dominican, I think every team has at least one team in the Dominican. Some have 2. The Red Sox have 2. The way I see it is my job is to have something to say about, and for the best guys, a lot more than that, but about every player in the organization. And actually this year they just created you can have up to 180 stateside minor leaguers, basically, at all of the levels. That's brand new, and we only really just figured this out because they just released the rules about that. Obviously the guys we have one of the main features on our website is our rankings. We rank the top 60 prospects in the system, which is not easy, even in good years, even in the years where they're loaded, to have an opinion on the 51st versus 52nd best prospect in the system. It's a little silly sometimes. And frankly, sometimes they'll be like, why is this guy ranked ahead of this guy? I'm like, that's how I felt that day. Honestly, like I had a spinach pie for lunch. I don't know. What do you want me to tell you? But it's just, so that's, the guys that are higher up in that ranking, obviously I need to have a lot more than one thing to say, but I want to have something to say about this one guy who's the backup shortstop on the Greenville Drive, just to know about him. And if something pops up, to have something to say about him. So we cover the farm system very in depth to that extent. Like when for example, I've been able to make it to a couple of games this year. I went to a game up in Worcester, and I went to a game out in Fredericksburg where the Fredericksburg Nationals were playing the Salem Red Sox. And so when the Salem team's hitting, I'm taking video, making some notes. I print out our scouting reports and kind of jot notes on what we want to edit. While they're pitching, I'm taking video of the pitcher. I'm usually standing behind a scout so I can read the readings on his radar gun. Again, jotting notes. We're not just sitting there. As much as I would love to sit at the game, kick back and throw a couple back, we don't do that. We're on the clock really when we're at the game. And now with video, I'm running around a lot more, whereas I used to just take a spot behind the plate, behind a scout, and kind of, watch the game, take notes on what I'm seeing. From that, I'll come back, look at our scouting reports for those guys. What can I edit? What can I add? Can I add velocities? Can I add our report on his defense is 1 sentence. Can I throw a couple more sentences on there? Based on what I saw, quick hands, makes the plays he's supposed to. Arms a little weak for the position, might have to move from shortstop to second base. I don't know. Not that that's just a random thing. I'm not saying that about anyone I saw, but that kind of thing, at the plate. For example, there's one player at the Salem level who's in our top 5 prospects by the name of Gilberto Jimenez. He's a switch hitter. He has two very different swings. His right-handed swing is very different from his left-handed swing. Took video of both, and another guy from our site put a side-by-side together, syncing them up and putting them in slow-mo. And we put it out on Twitter and Instagram saying like, okay, hey, when we say that this is two different swings, this is what we're talking about. And being able to write that up and describe it. Back in the day when I was more on the journalism side and had a little more time, might go into the law. Well, I guess I wouldn't this year, but in the past, maybe try and get an interview with a player or a coach, maybe write it up for a feature or just use it for the podcast, that kind of thing. We don't do that as much now because our focus has gotten a little more scouting based than feature based. Because I feel like features, unless you've got a good story, a generic feature story about like this player who's working on this thing, it's just not as interesting to me as just, look, here's the scouting report. You don't need 3 quotes from the coach saying what I'm just going to tell you.
You know what, Chris, I just listening to it, I think we were just talking this before you even got on. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, like the amount of knowledge that you have and your ability to kind of just recite that back and to speak on that. So for anyone that does that, like, hats off to you. My question on that is, did you realize when you were younger that you had some of these abilities to do this? And was baseball something that you really looked at and watched like this?
So, yeah, so I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go.
So I know where you're going with that, and I've got some things that come to mind. Well, one thing is I always have said I'm definitely not a scout. I'm not, a lot of what I do is also networking, and especially Ian Kundal, our director of scouting, is kind of tied in with he's networked with a bunch of major league scouts, and we'll get reports from them too. I certainly would not put what I see out there when it's, look, I can read a radar gun and get a velocity. I can say, yeah, the curveball breaks 12 to 6. Measurables. I can't look at a guy necessarily and tell you for sure after 2 games what his major league future is going to be. I have so much respect for Major League Baseball scouts who can do that and are on the road from February through September. I don't know how the hell they do it. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible ability to be able to do that. I've always approached it more from a journalistic perspective, but I've learned a lot. I've been doing this since 2005. I would hope by now I've got some.
I'm the quiz guy, Chris, man.
Okay. Yeah.
So I printed out an article.
Uh-huh.
From Bleacher Report,
okay.
2013. So it's an old article.
Uh-huh.
And the title of the article is "The 5 Biggest Draft Busts in Red Sox History."
Okay. And this is in what year? 2013, 15, you said?
2013 by Peter Wolverton. I don't know who that is.
Never heard of him.
I wasn't sure how to go about this so it wouldn't come out too clunky in terms of this part of it. So what I'll do is I'll just tell you the person's name.
Uh-huh.
You can.
I'll give you a couple minutes on them.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
I'll keep it short.
Okay. You ready? First one is Jason Place.
For him, and I feel better talking about this because Gabe Kapler was one of his minor league managers for a year, and he wrote for WEI for a while, and he mentioned at least one of these publicly. So I feel okay talking about it. Enough time has passed. He got punched out by not one but 2 of his teammates. It's on separate occasions because he basically just had a really bad attitude. One of which was Josh Reddick, who's a many-year major leaguer now.
Yeah.
And the other one was a guy, Ryan Kalish, who would have been a major leaguer, but just had injury issues. But Place, the thing with high school picks is there's a lot of risk, but potential reward. A lot of power, but he just never hit. Athletic kid, but bad attitude, couldn't hit.
So, but this one, I just want to read you. I won't do for all of them, but for this one, I want to read you. And then I won't do that. But I thought it was funny as you were describing him. So Jason immediately garnered attention for his quality defense in the outfield, adding to, and it's actually blanked out, I can't read it, adding to something. However, he moved up the ladder. Problems with his hit tool were magnified. Place started piling up strikeouts at an astronomical rate and began struggling to hit for average. His numbers became so horrendous later in his career that he never made it past AA. To make matters worse, Place became an increasingly unpopular player with his teammates.
And I actually would quibble because the fights happened in low A ball. So he was never popular with his teammates.
All right. So
it just came out more.
A couple of these at you.
Okay.
Chris Johnson.
Oh, with a K. Oh, I've got a good story for him too. He was a guy they drafted in, it's called the supplemental first round, back when you would get like your compensation picks between the first and second round. They drafted him out of, I want to say, Wichita State. He had Tommy John in college, and his stuff just never really came back. Can I say this? It's been long enough.
Three But Guys podcast.
It's been long. Yeah, that's a good point too. His father. So when he was in AAA, what we would noted about him was that he was much better the first time through the order than the second time through. And for that reason, we said his future might be in relief, where he can come out, air it out for 3 or 4 hitters and not face the order a second or third time through. His father recognized me in the parking lot at McCoy Stadium. And sometimes like family will come to us, be like, oh, how you doing? You know, love to meet family members. We hope that they enjoy the site. We try and be, you know, look, we're neutral. We try to be, even when we're talking negatively about players, you know, you don't want to just trash a guy. Oh, he stinks. He's a bum. Cut him. We never say that. This might be, hey, struggles with breaking stuff, whatever. And I said that, and I tried to say, look, he will have better success as a reliever. His father came up to me and said, he's never going to be a reliever. He'll be a starter. You'll see. And like, just kind of like, whoa, dude, chill. And like ran away. No, he will never be. He was never a major league starter. He actually found some success in like Japan, I want to say, or Korea, one of those 2 leagues. But yeah, I mean, it was just a weird interaction from someone who took something we said negatively when it wasn't meant to be taken.
I'll do just one more.
Okay, yes, sorry, because I'm not being short. I apologize.
Oh no, I love this. This is
you're proving your knowledge of these guys. It's unbelievable. Okay, the last one I'll do here is Caleb Clay.
Caleb Clay. Yeah, I honestly don't have a ton to say about him. I think he was another Tommy John guy. I think he had Tommy John after they drafted him first rounder, who they gave a good bonus to. I want to say he was an Alabama kid. I think he eventually did make his major league debut with the Nationals, but he just kind of never really panned out. I don't have anything interesting on him. But like I said, Tommy John guy, I want to say.
It's the little tidbits we get in the background, like the background side stories, like, you know, chasing people around and getting beat up in the.
I want to talk about you guys talked about a lot about that international ball, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like going way back, and correct me if I'm wrong, there weren't a lot of professional teams scouting overseas, like in Dominican Republic and Venezuela, correct?
Yeah, that's really been, it was the Wild West for a long time, for a really long time. And there were teams that would have 2, 3, 4 international scouts, if that. I looked the other day, the Red Sox have like 20 or so international scouts, 30 or so. And they've got like one guy in Europe. They've probably got a handful in Dominican, a handful in Venezuela, a couple guys in the Pacific Rim, 1 or 2 guys in you know, Japan and Korea. And so, you know, just the kind of Asian market.
Chris, how much money do you think they spend on scouting? If you would.
Ooh, I honestly have no idea. I don't even know, because you're paying salaries, you're paying travel. It's one of the last places that teams with a financial advantage can actually leverage it, because you've got more or less a major league salary cap. The draft spending is more or less hard capped. International free agent scouting is literally hard capped. Like there's a hard cap you cannot pass. The scouting and coaching, like player development, are really one of the last areas you can leverage a financial advantage, just to bring in numbers and better people and better technology. So I think it is an area that they do put a lot of resources into, and they do a very good job of it. You know, every year there'll be someone on our site and our forums. I should mention we have like a forum on our website that's really active, who come in and complain like, oh, they didn't sign one of Baseball America's top 30 prospects ranked by the bonus they're going to get. And it's like, well, okay. Every year they have like a $10,000 bonus guy who pops up and enters our top 30. Like our number, the Jimenez guy right now, they gave 10 grand to, and he's one of their top 5 prospects. Darwinzon Hernandez, who's in the major leagues right now, I think they gave a $5,000 bonus to. Like, you know, that's crazy. You know, so they do well, and they definitely spend a lot of money there. And that's an area that they put resources in, when at a time right now when a lot of teams are actually taking resources away from it because they think that they can use video and analytics to replace it. And I'm inclined to.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to come up and do what you're doing? You know, and how do they get started? And what would you recommend for them?
A few easy ones. Read. You know, get better at writing without reading. Sorry if you hear the pup. Write. Like I said, getting reps. You know, you get better by doing. Writing is one of those things. You're not going to churn out your best thing you've ever written the first time you sit down to write something. So read and write what you want to do. If you want to write features, read features. If you want to write books, read books, and write longer pieces, and do whatever you can to learn on both of those. And finally, the thing is just reach out to people who do what you want to do. And this is almost kind of all university applicable. But, if you want, you would be surprised the way people are willing to talk to you. If you, you can learn things by like listening to this podcast. Like, for example, one of the things that I was thinking of is, I forget her name, Brett, but I remember one of the guests you guys had on here was one of your classmates down from acting school
Cicely.
in Florida. Cicely, yes.
Yeah.
I would say this to someone who wants to be a lawyer. Go talk to some lawyers. Talk to some writers. If you want to be a writer, like Twitter, you can literally reach out to anyone almost, right? Like if you use Twitter right, and you're not just an egg yelling at a celebrity that they suck, reach out to someone, shoot them an email, be like, hey, I want to do what you're doing. What advice do you have? Hey, I'm a journalism student at BU, at wherever. I want to learn to do this. Can we have can I buy you a coffee? I would say this to a lawyer. Hey, you want to go be I practice white collar defense. I would say like, hey, go find a white collar defense attorney and I buy them a coffee. Be like, I would love to hear more about what you do. You'd be surprised.
I don't think they become lawyers if they hear that.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe. That's a good point. That's a good point. I'd say if you're already in law school and you're already pot committed. But no, I mean, just talk to people who do it and see what they have to say about their experiences, about what they've learned. And I know that's kind of, part of what we're doing here and what you guys are doing on this podcast, which is so great for people to just hear about things they may not know they're interested in. But talk to people who do it and hear what they have to say. Not especially if you're trying to get into writing, talk to writers. If you're trying to get into scouting, talk to scouts. Go to a minor league baseball game and find the guys behind the plate who are in pants, even though it's 95. Find the guys in the khaki and polo, and they'll talk to you. Definitely. Yeah. Maybe not when the guy's in the middle of pitching, but be respectful about it, and they'll definitely talk to you.